This is your brain. This is your brain after watching The Last Jedi.
Dad?
Yeah?
It kind of looks good.
Yeah, it kind of does. Why don't you get some bread for toast? But you know that's not the point, right? Chewie.
A little.
Something a little bit different today. We anticipate that they're going to release the title of the new Star Wars film any day now, the episode 9, because Star Wars Celebration is coming up very quickly. So we thought we would kind of celebrate ourselves and do a ranking of the Star Wars films from worst to first. Now, Lainie has her own list, which I haven't seen. I have my own list, which she hasn't seen. And we've included in here the Clone Wars, the animated film, as well as the 2 anthology films, Rogue One and Solo. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to kick it off with your worst Star Wars film?
Sure. And that would be The Phantom Menace, number 11. I think it's very confusing. I don't know, but to me, it does not set things up. So if we didn't have this one, we would still understand this second one without it.
So you feel like it's unnecessary and
right.
We could start with 2 and be fine.
Right. So in my opinion, it doesn't really need to be there.
Well, I don't disagree, but okay. All right. Well, my number 11 would be The Last Jedi. I'll tell you what I do like. This is a beautiful looking film. The cinematography is gorgeous. The art direction is beautiful. The color choices, lots of good things happening there. However, for me, the heart of the film has to be the story, and the storyline here is awful. And with the exception of Kylo Ren, all the characters either move backwards or stand still as far as character development goes. And this just isn't, to me, what I consider a Star Wars film. Even if it's different than the original films, that's okay, but it has to feel like it's in the same universe at least, and this one doesn't for me. Okay. Well, my number 10. My number 10 would be Phantom Menace. I do like Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul a great deal. I agree with you. I feel the story is overly complex. George Lucas has said that 60% of the prequel plot is actually in Revenge of the Sith. So this film and Attack of the Clones are what George Lucas termed as jazz riffs. So he was just kind of, in his words, doodling around with things that he liked in these films. And most of the plot happens in episode 3. So I agree with you, there's not a lot of substance in this particular film. Okay, what do you got for number 10?
The Last Jedi.
Okay.
I think in The Last Jedi, Luke is really miserable. Mm-hmm. The character of Luke.
Right.
He just doesn't sell it for me. I think the Force is a very powerful thing, a good thing, and Luke dies for using too much of it. That doesn't really make sense.
I'm not going to argue that either.
Not such a happy ending for Luke. And then, of course, Han dies in the one...
In The Force Awakens, right.
So he usually lightens up the mood. In this one, he couldn't do that to make it a little better, so...
Okay.
That's that.
All right. You want to give us your number 9?
Sure. My number 9 would be The Force Awakens. I like the beginning with Rey, and I like Han a little bit. What I really dislike is how Rey doesn't try, she just does. So, I can't whistle. I still can't whistle. No one is born with the ability to whistle.
So you're saying you're 9 years old and you can't whistle and you've been trying forever.
Right.
And Rey seems to have been born with the ability to use the Force.
Right.
Okay. Right, because we haven't seen any sort of, maybe if in The Last Jedi they had revealed some sort of hidden training that she'd had, then this would make sense. I really do think if The Last Jedi had been a better film, it would have made The Force Awakens a better film. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So.
Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, my number 9 would be Attack of the Clones. That jazz riff statement about Phantom Menace sort of applies to here, and this film suffers from the same problem. It doesn't have enough substance. I do love Obi-Wan's character and enjoy all his scenes. I do think some of the locations and the new characters are cool. I even like the scene in the diner with Dex. I thought that was kind of a neat little side thing, and it was kind of cool that Obi-Wan had this friend and he was a cook in a diner, but they'd had a history together. Thought that was great. I think the film has way too much CGI, and Anakin just doesn't appear heroic in the film, and that doesn't sort of happen until Revenge of the Sith and more so in the Clone Wars series, and I think we needed him to be heroic here to set up the fall of his character in the next film. So, all right, so my number 8 would be The Force Awakens. It only ranks this high because of the presence of Han and Chewie. It would have been lower if Han and Chewie weren't in it. And for me, they slide right back into the universe and they feel right in it. They do a great job. The introduction of the new characters is okay in this. I really thought the Maz character should have been Lando Calrissian instead. When Han says he's going to get BB-8 back to the Resistance for Rey, and he knows somebody who can do that, it would have made sense if it was Lando. After Cloud City, Lando would have set up his operation someplace else, and it would have been great if Han had gone there. It could have been the same location, but just under Lando instead of under Maz. I also thought they missed a great opportunity because with all the failings of the film, I would have forgiven everything if in that scene where they're having the battle in the snow, and the lightsaber, Finn is fighting Kylo Ren, and the lightsaber's in the snow and it's jiggling, and we're hearing the music from when Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, where Luke discovers their bodies. We hear that music. If that lightsaber had shaken and flown into Luke Skywalker's hand right there, and that was the battle, I would have forgiven everything. I think the theater would have erupted with applause and cheers. So that's my number 8. Your number 8.
My number 8 is Rogue One.
Okay.
Actually, I think that Jyn mostly could be a great character, but when we bring her into Rogue One, I feel like people think that we're supposed to know her in some kind of way. We're supposed to relate to her and stuff like that, which I think probably some people can. I can't. So I think that it doesn't really feel like a Star Wars movie with her just popping right into there like she's a Jedi.
You needed more You personally needed more backstory to understand her and to get into the film because she's the main character of the film. Okay.
Right.
All right.
She's like a totally new character, but the main character of the film.
Right. Well, that happens sometimes, but if you didn't feel like you understood her enough, I can get that. All right. What do you got for number 7?
For number 7, I have the Clone Wars.
Okay.
I think that it could probably be a good story, but the animation, I hate the animation, and I really can't stand it. So the first episode and the second episode, I'm like, I hate this animation, I can't. I was just totally focused on the animation.
And you never got into the story.
Right, so I kind of ignored the whole thing.
Okay.
Because the animation, I hated it.
It's a very different style of animation. I understand what you're saying.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
That's basically the big thing for them.
Interestingly, my number 7 is also the Clone Wars, but I liked it more than you, so I'm more up on the film than you. I agree with you about the animation. I feel the animation is somewhat lifeless. They look like carved wooden figures or something.
They really do.
So I'm not crazy about that. In the film, The Clone Wars is uneven, but it does introduce Ahsoka, who ultimately becomes a great character. And for me, Rey isn't even in the same conversation as Ahsoka. She's the character that I think has won people over and they wanted Rey to be that type of character, and she never became that. This also sets up the series, and the series goes on to feature some great Star Wars moments. And it also introduced something that nobody talks about, but I kind of liked, and that was the ship, the Twilight, which was the freighter that Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan would often use on missions. They get the Twilight in this film, and that ship had kind of a character of its own, and it had a role similar to the Millennium Falcon in the regular saga, and I thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was a nice addition, good writing. So that was my number 7, but I liked it, and you didn't. Okay, for me, number 6 is Solo. This was not a bad film. It had bad timing. Had this been one of the first films to come out before Force Awakens or Last Jedi, I think it would have been better accepted. I think it failed basically on the heels of everybody's distaste with The Last Jedi. That's my take on it. I think it has the right look and feel, explores some new areas of the galaxy. Kira is a great character for me. I liked her. But the long-awaited backstory of Han and Lando is kind of underwhelming for me. And it really doesn't gel with what we see in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So while I like the actors in their roles, I just feel like that backstory of Han and Lando wasn't written well. And it could have been so great. So that's a disappointment for me. How about your number 6?
My number 6 is Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Well, I think that Attack of the Clones doesn't necessarily need to be there, but there are some great parts in it, because you liked a couple of parts.
I like some parts about it, yes.
And I like a couple of parts, one of which is when Anakin and Padme are on the field, and Anakin is on this, like, rhino creature.
He's riding the creature, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And he falls off it. And then Padme runs to him, and he's not answering, but he's alive at the end.
Right, so you like the playfulness of that scene. Okay.
And then the other thing I like is when Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan are, like, chained to this pole, and they're trying to get out of it, fighting, like, dinosaur creatures.
Yeah, that's the arena scene toward the end of the film.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's
I like that. Yeah. I think it's a good fight.
And it's a tribute to the Ray Harryhausen creatures and whatever else. It does have some good elements. Interestingly, you picked out 2 elements that were very different than the ones I did. I like the Obi-Wan scenes much more, but yeah. I understand where you're coming from with that.
But other than that, I really don't think it's necessary or it really needs to be there.
Okay. All right. Well, how about you give me your number 5?
My number 5 is Solo.
Okay.
Actually. Well, your number 6 was Solo. My number 5 is Solo. Because I think I liked Solo a little bit more than you. I really like Lando as the character. I loved Kira. And Han being the main character is, like, awesome.
Right. Well, you love Han.
Right.
As do I. I understand that.
I think I really like every part of it. I do think Lando and Han's relationship is a little bit iffy, but I think it's a good film. The one thing I disliked a lot was when they had music in the film, it wasn't Star Wars music. It was like some other kind of music that...
Well, it wasn't John Williams' score. And,
exactly.
Yeah. And there were two or three little segments where for a minute or not, maybe not even a minute, you heard John Williams' score, and that was awesome.
Right.
And it really did feel like Star Wars. Like when Han and Chewie are piloting the Falcon together for the first time.
That's awesome.
That was awesome. I agree with you.
But the music that wasn't...
Yeah, it was bland. It could have been on any film.
It's just blah.
Didn't feel like a Star Wars film. All right. Okay, well, my number 5 is Rogue One, which I obviously like better than you. I did like it a lot in the theater, but I can't seem to rewatch this film. I've tried and I just can't get through it. I like Jyn Erso. K2SO is possibly my favorite droid in the Star Wars universe, and he's certainly my favorite character in this film. I think he's great, and the guy who voices him is great too, Alan Tudyk, or Tudyk, or however Tudyk. I don't know how you say his name, but he's great. I also like the warrior monks. I would have preferred maybe to see the film focus on the warrior monks instead of Jyn, but that's just my take. She could have been one of them. I like that idea. So her character could have been one of them, or could have been affiliated with them. But Cassian's character for me is uneven and not very likable. He starts out a certain way, especially the way he handles the informant at the beginning of the movie. He doesn't like Jyn all the way. He switches gears really quickly and flies in support of her. Very strange. I also thought the retconning of the Death Star exhaust port was completely unnecessary. I've dealt with that in other videos where I thought, it's just silly. Everything has a flaw, and that was the whole point of dissecting the plans that R2 had. I thought the space battle with the X-Wing squadrons at the end, with Blue Squadron and Red Squadron and everything else, I thought that was awesome. And I love the Easter eggs in there. I thought that was great. Okay. My number 4 is Revenge of the Sith. Like the original trilogy, I can watch this one repeatedly. With the exception of a few awkward moments, there's almost no waste in this film. Every scene propels the story forward for me. From the opening space battle, this one just felt right. And as I alluded to before, it contains 60% of George Lucas's prequel plot, so I guess that makes sense. It falls into place there. But I really do like this film a lot. One or two moments could have been a little less, let's say, cheesy, but I like the film a lot. Your number 4?
My number 4 is Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay.
I really like the Ewoks. Not only are they cute, but they're so lovable.
Target audience. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's a good thing.
I really like the sail barge scene with Jabba the Hutt. I think that's an awesome scene. I love how Leia and Luke work together to get off of the one ship. I like how Luke goes to get Leia. Mm-hmm. I like how Leia's chained to Jabba and how she reacts to it. And basically, I just really like Leia also. Mm-hmm. I think Leia, this was one of her best films. I think that she's a really strong character in this film, where in some of the other films, like right now, she's not too cheery and happy and stuff.
I understand.
And in some of the other films, she just really doesn't have a lot of a bigger part.
Okay.
So I think this one's her best one.
All right. Okay. Well, what do you got for number 3?
My number 3 is Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
I think that it's not like any of the other Star Wars films. It feels different than the original trilogy, but it still feels like Star Wars. When the prequels, the other prequels, don't feel like Star Wars kind of at all. That. So that's one thing. But also, I think there's great characters in this one. I think they all flow into each other and work together to do this. And I really like the characters in this one.
I agree with you. I like that film a lot, as I just said, so I understand. Okay. All right, well, my number 3 is Return of the Jedi. And probably, the original trilogy for me, it was formative, so I'm there. So Revenge of the Sith, though, is very close to this one. People complain about the Ewoks. I like the Ewok storyline, but I agree it does get a little cutesy here and there, but their storyline is important, and that was Lucas basically retooling the Wookiee storyline he originally envisioned of primitive culture overthrowing a technologically superior culture. So I thought that was important, or it worked. I don't like that Han is sort of domesticated in this one. I think his brashness was a key element in all these films, and toning him down or taming him, I didn't care for. That brashness does reappear in Force Awakens for me, and that was one of the things I liked about Force Awakens. And there wasn't much. I like Lando's role here. I like how his role develops, and he's a general, and I like him in the space battle. And that space battle is epic, and it's something that you were just talking about with Revenge of the Sith, and I'll talk about here. The name of this series is Star Wars, so space battle should be a part of it, and I think that's one of the reasons Revenge of the Sith felt right. It starts out with that great space battle, and you get that. And here we have a great space battle to end the film. I love that. The sail barge scene, the speeder bike chase, Luke and Vader's showdown, all this combines to make it a great film for me.
I really do agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah, one of the best. One of the best. All right. Okay, my number 2. Number 2 and number 1, I could have gone either way. I would have tied them for number 1 if I could have, but I didn't know if we were allowed to do that. So I'm gonna, number 2 for me is Star Wars, which you people call A New Hope, but I still call it Star Wars. Episode 4. This is the film that started it all. This certainly could have been number 1. New worlds, characters, ideas, things we'd never seen before as an audience. At the same time, even though everything was new and foreign to us, we accepted everything and it seemed familiar because of the mythology and the tributes to the genre that George Lucas worked with to make it happen. I felt like Harrison Ford's Han Solo and the character of Darth Vader kind of sell this film, along with John Williams' score. Luke's character is not yet given the weight or even the humor that he would get as things moved on, so I really think Han kind of makes this film move for me. And Vader certainly was a great villain. And like I said, this could have been number 1. Because, I mean, it's the one that started it all, so. Okay,
Right.
your number 2.
My number 2 is The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
I love how all of the characters care for each other in this film. How I can tell is when Han goes out for Luke, because Luke is in the cave with the Wampa.
Right.
That it really does show that he cares for Luke, and obviously the other characters do too. And then later in the film, Luke comes after for his friends, so I think that's kind
You're
of
right.
cool.
I never really thought about that in that way, but they do show how much they care for each other in this film. That's a good point.
I also love the battle in the snow. I think that's a great fight.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
I think that one might be one of my favorites.
Okay.
I think CP3O is great in this one. I think he's funny. And he is not annoying in this one.
I agree with you. The humor's just perfect for C-3PO in this film. I think this is his best film out of the bunch. But anyway, yeah.
I just really like every little detail in this one.
Okay. But not enough to make it your number 1.
Not enough to make it.
All right, well, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is The New Hope.
Okay.
I love this film. One of the reasons why I do is because of the ending. It's the original Star Wars, called Star Wars.
Right.
So I do think that it's cool. I love the ending, though. I really do. I think it's a great way to conclude it for that episode, and just to conclude it for there and then go back and do other ones. And that's when Leia gives Luke, Han, and Chewie the medals.
Mm-hmm. She actually doesn't give Chewie the medal in the movie, but in the comic book it says the reason for that is she's not tall enough and he does get a medal. So that's a big controversy, but he does get a medal according to the comic book. Anyway, anything else?
The space battles.
Okay.
I like the space battles in this one.
And there's a lot in this one, actually. You know, with the TIE fighter.
And it's called Star Wars. They're in the stars.
Right.
They're doing war. So I think it's a great film.
Okay.
Your number 1.
Well, my number 1 is The Empire Strikes Back, and like I said, this could have gone either way. To me, though, this film improves on everything in A New Hope, Star Wars, and yet it's completely original on its own. It's a sequel that doesn't retell the story of the first film or even revisit the same beats as the first film, which was strange for a sequel at that time. In fact, this is one of the few films where we don't go back to Tatooine, and I like that because it makes the universe seem bigger and more vast. And in later films, the universe seemed more small and claustrophobic because we kept going back to Tatooine and revisiting places we'd seen. This one takes the story in new directions, and everything moves forward. All the characters, unlike The Last Jedi, all the characters move forward in this. And the addition of new characters, worlds, storylines, and everything are all successful. It doesn't plant anything new in the universe that makes it feel, that unsettles the universe. Everything flows. So I feel like that's still the top of the mark for Star Wars films. Okay. Well, we're sure you probably have your own opinions, and I'm sure they're different than ours. We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. down below. Go for it. And if you like the video, please let us know and feel free
to subscribe.
Have a great day.
This is your brain on drugs.